I didn't change, including the chair. I didn't change anything actually, but there's going to be a surprise in the end, so just stick around.
Microphone.
Oh, the microphone. How do I do this? This like this? Good.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So let me jump right in. So here's the starting point, I think. So we want to make sense. So here's a great play by Eugene Ionesco. This is one of the so-called Berenger plays. I don't know whether you know them. So it's well, the main character is Berenger. There's four of them. Like the most famous, I guess, is Either This or A Stroll in the Air. And at a certain point, Thomas Satig is not here today. At a certain point, the people in this French town started to turn into Renaissance. And so in this French town, social essentialism doesn't hold. In effect, actually, almost everyone turned into the Renaissance besides Berenger. But at the very beginning, okay, when the first, let's say, person becomes a rhinoceros, then they see a rhinoceros, and then they see this one horn that's going to say, oh, it's an African rhinoceros. I know I'm talking a lot about UNESCO because that's the most fun part about the talk. So I'm just going to, and then there's going to be, they see another rhinoceros, but this has two horns. And then they go, well, then there are two rhinoceros. And the logician says, well, how do you know? Right? It can have, perhaps the rhinoceros changed. And then he said they stand at the same time in two places. And then the good logician says, well, cannot entertain the possibility of the same creature being present in two places at the same time. Benedict actually wants to know, the down-to-earth man says, that doesn't solve my problem. Like why people are turning into rhinoceros. And the logician asks, obviously, my dear, but the problem is the correct flow. So what I want to do here is to expose the problem. And it started with something from Kit, as a matter of fact, which I appreciate is dressed all in black. That's a very nice touch. So the structure is pretty simple, so I'll just skip. So here's some examples where presence comes into, let's say, philosophy, literature, and metaphysics in particular. Objects and events are present at time and words. Universals are somehow present in their instances, or where the instances are. That's going to be a difference. And I had a chat with Ant a long time ago about this. Organizations are present where their members are, at least sometimes, not all the time, maybe. I know that there's a new paper which I haven't read. Watch on it. And then the Abrahamic God is said to be present everywhere. So presence is literally present everywhere in metaphysics. But here's Kit in one classic paper. So which we discussed a little bit. This is about compounds and aggregates. So Goldie yesterday was taken from, compounds and aggregates, this notion here. And he's talking about how things compose. And then he says, look, it must be admitted that these explanations do not go far enough because we lack a clear understanding of what presence is. So I thought, and then I was reading another paper of his, which is in defense of three-dimensionalism. And I thought, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm just going to sit here and just going to do that. Now I'm going to tell you a story about this because it turns out that I thought I did what he wanted. And then I reread again, and it turns out it's not at all what he wanted. And that's okay. I mean, I disappoint people all the time, so it's not the first time. Okay, good. So, but here's a thought. And this has come from me chatting with Damiano a lot. So certainly presence is just location, right? I mean, to be present at the region is just to be there, right? I mean, I see Christian there, right? It's present there, it's there, it's located there. And we have detailed theories of location by now. In fact, I'm writing a book on this. So of course, there's no need to actually have a theory of presence. But here's the kick by Damiano and others, Kate as well, or some people that work in philosophy of religion, many philosophers want to be able to say that objects are not located in time. Or for example, universals are not located in space. And God is not located in space. So it cannot just be location. So as of now, I'm setting myself two actually requirements, which are very vague, but I think they nonetheless are important. So to develop a theory of location, you have to be a little bit general. It has to be at least responsive to all the cases above. Of course, I cherry pick them, the ones that I know how to handle. And I'm tired, so I'm very good at cheating. And second, flexibility, meaning like the theory has to have crucially this feature. If you're present somewhere, it doesn't entail that you're located there. That's the key feature of the theory. Okay, so and the theory that I'm going to say, let me be upfront, so that the main aim of this paper is constructive and exploratory, meaning I'm going to flesh out a theory in certain details and we'll situate among others. I don't make any claim that it's the only one that actually respects the thing, nor it's the best. I actually don't know how to argue for whether it's the best. I just want to flesh out the theory in detail because I haven't seen it. And it rests on two pillars. The first one is the notion of, yeah, that's the formality kind of thing. Yeah, from now, go stick at the end. At the end, sure. Okay. So a delegation structure is an antipole of that form. I'm going to change the names and because everyone thinks they suck, and I think they're right. But I didn't have time. So S, D plus, D minus, F, and D. So as you can see, there are three sets and two relations. So the first one is a non-empty set of positions or places. I will not put any sort of restrictions on that. D plus is a non-empty set of delegators. D minus is a non-empty set of delegates. And the only thing that matters here is that they need not be disjoint. As a matter of fact, for some particular applications, it has to be the case that D plus and the intersection between D plus and D minus is not empty. And for some other, for example, philosophy of religion, it has to be the case that D minus is just S. The delegates are going to be the places. Okay. So that's the only imposition I have on D, on the sets. So let me talk a little bit about the relations here. So the relations are just location relations. We're all experts here. So the only thing, we've seen it with Fabrice, we've seen it with Kit. So I'm just not going to even talk about them. The only thing, let me say with the picture I'm developing first, right? For people that will not follow the formalism too much. So the picture I'm going to develop is that intuitively is the following: some things, the delegators in D plus, delegate D, some things, the delegates in D minus, to do some duties for them at region S, okay, and the delegates going to be located there. That's the picture. Okay, so intuitively, please don't take to literally. If I want to get my passport and I cannot be there, I can delegate Chris, and then say, Chris, can you actually, one of the two Chris, can you actually pick it up? Good. So that's the picture we're developing. So the location relations, they're the ones that we all know. So for the purpose of the talk, in the paper there's a little bit of more formal thing, but for the purpose of the talk, the only things that you need. Weak location is just not being free, and exact location is the one Kate was talking about. For the purpose of the talk, it's just all that matters is that they stand in these logical relations, entailment going uphill along the lines. So this is going to be the strongest logical relation, and this is going to be the weakest logical relations. As a matter of fact, in the book, we actually doubled all of them, so we have 7 of them. But for this, it just doesn't matter. This Fabrice tends to distinguish whatever get distinguished. Okay, good. So for D relations, though, it's a little bit. So from these characterizations, right? From the characterizations I told you, P1 and P2 just follow. Okay, they just say what nature the relata are of the two relations. The only other principle that I'm going to assume on D is P3. P3 says that if Y is the delegate of X at place Z, then Y has to be at least located there. Why am I doing this? So here's the intuitive rationale behind it. P3 ensures that delegates are at least located at the place of duty, at the place of delegation. So the thought here is simply the following. Like, it's supposed to capture the idea that delegators can perform their duties in absentia, but delegates can't. Delegates have someone to be there. That's the thought. And it's the only one required. Now, so here's a bunch of other principles which I think are, see, from this characterization, so these are the other ones that you might think they're plausible. I'm not going to require any of those. I'm now starting to think, but I want to actually get feedback on this, from you. I had before, on P4. So P4 literally says that if something is located at a place, then it's its own delegate at that place. Now, I find it the most plausible of them all. I think that the other one are all false, the other ones. This one is plausible insofar as you think that location entails presence. You don't want presence to entail location, but if you want location to entail presence, so for example, you think, well, Kit is located there, therefore is present there, then D4 will do it for you. With the definition I'm about to give, D4 will do it for you. Now, Giuliano, recently, so recently that I haven't had the time to read it, sent me a paper on presentism, right? In which the past is an entity which is located in the present, but it's not present in the present. Or something like this. I know it. But if you want that, then you shouldn't have P4. If you think that location can go without present, then you shouldn't have P4. Okay? It's the only one that I think has some sort of plausibility. 5 is some sort of anti-symmetry. It says that if things are delegate of each other at the same place, then they're the same. Then P6 tells you that basically you can have only one delegate at a place. And then if you think that we were chatting with Damiano that you can have higher order delegations, like delegates can have delegate, whether delegation is inherited, then I think you shouldn't want that. So if Ollie is my delegate at that place and Kit is his delegate at that place, it doesn't follow that Kit is my delegate at that place. I mean, I think that your theory shouldn't entail that, because I can think of plausible counterexample to all P5, P6, and P7. We will not go over it, but if you're interested, I'll tell you. So P4, I'm undecided, kind of think it's intuitive that location entails presence. So I'm, but officially the theory only has P3. P3, I think it's one of the crucial bit of the theory. Okay, good. So that's the first pillar, the notion of locational structure. And here comes the definition of presence, which is the other pillar. For X to be present at a place, it's just for it to have a delegate at that place. It's just very simple. Okay. I know. I mean, it's unsatisfyingly just simple. I know. But that's it. Right? That's all the theory as far now it says. And it already does a few things. Okay. But of course, now that you have presence, okay, you might ask, so the first one, the P8 now just follows. Okay, P8 just follows from the definitions and the locational structure. But you might now actually ask questions about presence, whether the theory entails it. So for example, the first one, keep switching these things. Should drink less. So the first one says whether a presence is dissected. That is to say that if you're present at a place, are you present in subregions of that place? The P10 asks whether it's monotonic. So if you're present at a place, then you're present at superregions. And P11 asks if it's additive. That is to say, if you're present at a bunch of places, and those places sum them up, okay, are you present at the sum? Now, the theory doesn't entail any of those, as a matter of fact. And I think that's right. That's correct, because I can think of violations of all, so it's good that it doesn't entail that. Now, it does, on very weak principles about location, it does entail that the delegates will be located at the relevant region. For example, because weak location is both, it's clearly monotonic, let's say, but it doesn't follow that you're a delegate there, unless you actually force it with your hand in the formal theory. So the formal theory doesn't tell you that, which I think it's correct. I can think of some counterexamples, but I will have to tell you something more about D. Okay, so now you can do, so it's very flexible. You can define a bunch of notions. These notions are not just because, I want just to define stuff because I don't know what to do with my life. It's just they really matter for the applications. Okay, so here's for something to be an occupant, it's just for something to be located somewhere in the system of places. So we're all occupants of space, I guess. We don't know whether we're occupants of time. If you ask Kate and Damiano, they will say no. We're occupants of Switzerland, probably, right? We are present somewhere in Switzerland. We are somewhere in Switzerland. And then you can have a proper delegate. A proper delegate is just a delegate and it's not itself. I mean, that's not identical with itself. It's not identical to the delegator, let's say. And of course, it just follows that delegates are occupants, proper delegates are delegates, therefore they're occupants. You just get that for free. Like it's going to be important. Okay. So that's the theory. So I'm just going to situate with other theories. And the last one is, I think, Kate, because I should have read it before doing this thing. So the first one just says the weak theory of presence, for X to be present at a place, is just for it to be weakly located there. I had some sympathies for that until I actually chatted with Damiano and read Kate's work. But my argument is I like these guys, and that's it. I'm not saying that they're right. Saying I like them, so. So because you say, well, to be present is just to be weakly located there, of course, it just fails the flexibility requirement. It just entails that. It just entails location. So here's another one, which I actually got chatting with Ant for a particular thing that was not about presence, was just about location. So we were talking about his theory of location. And so here's the general view about delegation, about presence. For X to be present at a place is for X to be weakly located, not at the place, but at the delegate at that place. Okay, why is it important? So we were chatting with Ant, and Ant suggested to me Once that you may think that universals are not located, so beauty is not located where Damiano is literally located at Damiano's. So he suggested that to me for universal. So I think that that's actually this view. So once again, it might face the generality requirement just because I think that for some, what we call induced relations, for some relations that actually are induced by delegation, I think this is just implausible. I think it's plausible in this case. No. So he wasn't endorsing that. By the way, I'm not saying that he thinks that.
Sorry, what was the generality requirement again?
Sorry?
What was the generality requirement again?
Generality requirement has to be responsible for all these cases. And for some of those cases, I think it's implausible to say that you're located there. And of course, it's just, as it stands, it's just stronger than the delegation theory. And just in case the delegation theory, but the comments does not hold ceteris paribus, it's less costly. Yeah. Good. So, and here comes, to my surprise. So I did this entire thing. See, I will tell you exactly when in my writing I did that. At a certain point in my writing, I'll tell you when. I went back to the theory of Kate. I mean, to the paper that started, and I thought, I got it. I did what he wanted. And then he literally says, no, you should be primitivist about presence. Presence is irreducible to notions. So this is my phrasing, not his. Presence is irreducible to notions such as location and delegation, even if it might actually display substantive connection to them. And I don't know that. Right? And in fact, it should be taken as a primitive. And I think now that I think it's also a particular, well, he's here, so he can say, but I think it's also a particular kind of primitivist, which is a pluralist primitivist. It thinks there are many notions of presence, not just one, and they're all irreducible to one another. Okay. Fabrice suggested that I should think of my delegation theory, well, it's not my theory, of the delegation theory as a pluralist about delegation. He thinks that it's not just one delegation relations, there are many. So just to say, I had a chat, many delegation relations, and I'm primitive about those. But that's what Fabrice suggested. I know it's not, it couldn't be here, but I wanted to report. Okay, so these are the alternatives just to situate the thing. Okay, so now that's the important bit for the applications. So looking at the examples we started from, one cannot help but notice the following thing, that the relation D, it seems to back up, or induces, I would say, particular relations between the delegates and the delegation, and the delegate and the delegators. So I'm just going to say that this means just that let's say, it backs up conditional of that form. If Y is the delegate of X at Z, then there's a particular relation between Y and X. Now, chatting again with Damiano, not about this, but in general, once you have that in the picture, Damiano suggested that there might be other theories that I haven't considered, for example, that just higher order identification of presence with this relation. As a matter of fact, some people can go as far as claiming that at least this relation, which I will tell you some examples, okay, are grounding claims for the presence claims. Let me show you how. So here's the examples we're gonna go through. Perduring object delegates its proper temporal parts. An enduring object delegates itself. A contingent object delegates its past counterparts, for example. A universal delegates either one of the things that exemplify that. Social entity delegates its members or something else. I mean, doesn't have members. And God delegates created things, or for a very particular view, it delegates regions of space themselves. And now you can say, well, so here's another theory you didn't consider. It's a higher order identification that says for the universal to be present at a region is just for it to be instantiated at that region. Okay, so that's a higher order theory of presence. Another view that you can have, now you can say, well, you get to get your thing, but then you have a grounding claims. Then you say, well, why the universal is present there? Because it is instantiated there. Okay, in virtual. And Damiano, when he was young, I think got close to that view in John of philosophy. Yes.
It's really
So, yeah, you were, yeah, but you were young. It's okay. You're better. Okay, good. So here's some relations which I think are very important. The induced relations are important. And I chose that not at random, actually, as a matter of fact. The formal profile of this is going to matter. So if Y is the delegate of X, at Z, then Y is X, then Y is a counterpart of X, and then Y is a part of X. 3 examples from the applications I want to actually use. Okay. Why these? Because these are important for what I'm going to do now. So these are, I think, it's the art of the thing for the applications. not for the theory, but for the applications. So for an induced relation to be location conducive, is for it to entail that the delegator is at least weakly located there. It's location exclusive if it follows that the delegator is not weakly located there, and it's location indifferent otherwise. So now I use the three relations because I think that they actually make examples exactly of those. So first of all, of course, identity is the paradigmatic conducive relation, location conducive, right? So it just follows on the machinery set up that if the delegate is identical to the delegator, then the delegator is weakly located there. For identity is the paradigmatic conducive relation. The paradigmatic exclusive relation might be not Lewisian counterpart for model space, but maybe for time in exdurantism. Like exuding objects are supposed to be confined to a time. Okay. So they have counterparts, they delegate their counterparts at other time, but they're excluded from those times. Okay, they don't get even to be weakly located those times. Okay, that could be. And now for the only part of philosophy of physics for Ollie and Chris. Chris actually might be interested in this. What about parting? I'm going to argue now that parting might be location indifferent. So if it is location indifferent, you have to ask yourself whether it entails P20 or P21. If it entails P20, it's going to be location conducive. If it entails P21, it's location exclusive. Now, here's the thing I'm not going to prove, but I didn't do the proofs, but I'm fairly convinced I can do them. So it turns out that this depends on whether these two principles about location, which are fairly mild, hold of location. So if X is weakly located at X, then if X is part of Z, then Z is also weakly located at Y, meaning like if my hand is here and my hand is part of me, also I'm here as well. Okay. And the other says, well, if I'm exactly here, if I perfectly fit here, right, and then my hand is here, then my hand is at least weakly located where I am, which seems pretty mild, but actually violations of those have been explored in philosophy of physics. So the violations, so the first one gets violated in a very weird view about wave function realism by Arisa. Arisa thinks that there's a wave function field, it's located only in configuration space. We are just located here, and we are parts of it. So it violates that. It violates P22. Now, in quantum gravity, on the other hand, Sam Barron is not here. Sam is not here. Right. So Sam Barron, but also Christy Miller, for example, and Baptiste Levian, of course, hold the view that emergent space-time is just done by mereology. Like you compose things that are not in space-time to have space-time regions, and if space-time regions are exactly located at themselves, then you get violations of 23. So they have been explored. That's the only bit of philosophy of physics, I'm sorry. But now, so I tend to think they're fairly minor, but here's what you could do. Just I think it's interesting in its own right to solve this problem if you think that these principles of location should be actually had in your account. And I mean, I pushed that objection against Alisa, so I'm literally actually saying there's a way of getting out of my own objection. But so suppose you define the following things as system mates. For X and Y to be system mates, if is for them to actually be in the same space, let's say, occupant of the same space. That's it. Now, if you do this, if you restrict P22 and P23, just by sticking an antecedent that says they're system mates, I think that these are just going to be fine. So the physics example now don't violate this, because all the physics example turn out on the fact that these things are not system mates. Okay. So, and I tend to think that these are fairly minor. And Chris and I actually, we tried to write an entire paper on this, but it got rejected so many times. So that's it. So now the good thing about this thing here is that now whether part of this location conducive or exclusive will depend on whether the delegators and the delegates are system mates. Because if they are, you get this, then you get location conduciveness. If they're not, you don't get them. Therefore, there might be location exclusive. So that's why. But of course, it's a little bit complicated. Okay. If you think that these all are restricted, then it's location conducive. Okay, good. Okay, now, so here's another notion which is important for Damiano and Kate. So only at least two people in the world. And Peter Simon, so it's at least three. So for an induced relation to be occupancy conducive, is for it to entail that the delegator is in the system of position, not at the place of delegation. It's a system of position. Okay. It's going to be important. Of course, occupancy exclusive if it's not in the system of position, occupancy different if it's neither. Why it's important? Because occupation conduciveness and location conduciveness are not the same notion. In fact, you can prove that location conduciveness entails occupancy conduciveness, but the comments does not hold. The other way around for exclusiveness. But apart from the formal thing, right, you get the intuitive picture. The intuitive picture is occupancy. So a location conducive relation requires a delegate to be there. If Keith is my delegate at that place, he has to be there. Occupation conduciveness just means that it has to be somewhere. It gets to be in Neuchâtel if he wants so, or Venice. Okay. It has to be in the system of places, but not there. So it's going to matter a lot for the applications. Now for the things that I thought actually captured what Kit wanted to say. The name really suck. Achille Vaz suggested me betters, so I'm going to stick. This suck. I mean, I could. It's not that bad, but the other one is bad for what I wanted. It's not bad in general. For the delegator to X to be anchored at Y is for it to be present and located, and to just exist at Y is for it to be present but not located. So now you can define all the. See, I promise they will all make. I know. All these is saying, okay, we got definition 60. There's going to be 10 more. I know, but they're going to all play a role. I promise. So for a delegator to be extended in a system of places, you might have the view that it's just for it to have at least 2 delegates. Or you can have yet another notion, say, well, so you can actually take the sum of the exact locations of the delegates, say that that's extended, and then just say that for a delegator to be extended is for it to have an extended locus. They're not equivalent, as a matter of fact. And for persistence cases, this matters, which one you choose. So that's why I'm doing all this stuff. I'm sorry, just bear with me. Now you might think, so you can define force multipresent just be present in a bunch of places. Okay. And now you might think, can you actually recover multi-location as Fabrice does in the proxy theory? And unfortunately, I hoped, and unfortunately the answer is no. This is not multi-location in that sense at all. As a matter of fact, it's crucial that you have a theory of location for delegates, which I don't have. It's crucial for Fabrice's theory, for example, that the theory of location for proxies is the one that Parsons had with weak location as a primitive. If I don't add it by hand, that theory would not recover multi-location like that. But I can define now omnipresence. Ollie's looking at me very bad. I'll pay you a beer. Promise. So it is to be omnipresent is for it to be present at each place, of course. And omnilocated is, of course, to be omnipresent and located. And omni-existent is going to be omnipresent, but not even located. They're all going to play a role. Okay, so but here's the situation. You can have omnipresence. If you add weak location, you get omnilocation. If you add not location, then you get on. Oh, what was this? Sorry, it's nice. Okay, so you get omni-existent. Okay, good. So here's now. So here's another bunch of definition. I'm sorry. I really am. I have a surprise for you. So I'm less sorry. So for a delegator to be concentrated, it's for it to be a unique delegator, and the unique delegator gets to have it's identical to each of its delegates. Whether it is dispersed, if it's different from all of its delegates. Now, why it matters? Because I think Peter Simons actually had a beautiful, not very well-known paper in which he says dispersion and concentration. You find that throughout metaphysics, and it's true. You get this beautiful picture here. Now you get concentration in the theory of delegation. You get this. You get these patterns that you can see particulars in time. I mean, if you're not a perdurantist. Properties in space, I put it in blue because it's not true that you only need that. You need something more, unfortunately. But I realized that at 5 a.m. in the morning. So I'm not going to talk about this. But you get all these things, patterns of dispersons and concentration throughout metaphysics, which I think it's nice. But Peter actually knew that already. Like I just recovered it more in general. Now, so let me see. That's the Okay, that's done. Okay, just breath. And now we're going to apply it. Okay, well, I'm going to do two cases. I want to do God, if I can. Say. Okay, so you might think that the most basic distinctions in metaphysical persistence is perdurantism, endurantism, exdurantism. Then comes the locational turn, and you might think, well, or between mereological and locational notional persistence. But then comes Damiano, right? Or before him, Peter and Kit, that says, no. Before there's a distinction to be made about whether one believes that persistent things are located in time, Damiano calls them immanent theories, or they're not located in time, and Damiano calls them transcendentist theories of persistence. That we actually, so I think Fabrice mentioned that, right? So transcendentist theory of persistence, as far as I know, it's it and Peter Simons, right? So we have 2/3 of them. Oh, Alessandro Giordano.
Pass Van Frassen in the 70s.
Okay, so we have one, and good people too. So that's good. So it's a good thing to take them seriously. So here's his view. How can you cover that? You're gonna say, look, so here's the delegation structure for his particular brand, in which things get to be present at times by participating in events that are located in times. So you get this the set of places, the temporal regions. The delegators is just the set of persisting objects. Then the delegates are events. The relations are that. And then you're gonna say of this relation D, which is, I didn't say, which is a subset of this Cartesian product, that it's gonna be occupancy and location exclusive, both. He doesn't want, Kit, I don't know honestly about you, but he doesn't want time, things to be in time at all. I'm not located in time. Okay. So that's why you literally need the distinction between occupancy conducive and location conducive. It's crucial for that. Now, if you want the mereological versions of classical theories, you can get them like this. I will not go over this, but the nice thing about the account is that now all of the things is done by patterns of being location conducive versus exclusive, occupancy, or concentration and dispersion. All the distinctions will be recovered by this. So for example, here, the logical perdurantism, you will have that location conducive, therefore occupancy conducive, okay? And with just very, very minor assumptions that, for example, temporal parts are not multilocated, okay? You get that they are dispersed. So endurantism, you will get that it's location conducive and therefore occupancy conducive, but they get that they're concentrated. They're not dispersed. And for exdurantism, you will have its location exclusive but occupancy conducive. So you can cash out every difference. Like it will be cashed out here. So the delegational structure will actually reflect all those differences that you want. Okay, which is, I think, that's what I thought it was a nice result. That was I thought it was a nice result for this. And then I thought, and that's where I thought, Kate, because I thought I can now reproduce this beautiful table from Kit. This is from the other paper, in defense of three dimensionalism. It doesn't have these labels, but the thought is that you can capture a distinction between things and events if you want to go that way. If you want to go that way, because events are going to be located and therefore anchored, okay, both in time and space, whereas objects are going to exist at times, but they're just going to be located in space. Okay. So once I had that thing, which is very similar to what Kit has, I thought, okay, I've done it. Just make sure and reread Kit's paper. And that's a lesson for you. You should read it first. Don't do all the work. Because I thought, okay, if I can get this, then I'm done what he wanted. And then here's a quote. Now, by the way, before this, he literally says that having a general theory of presence is a project that is misguided. I couldn't bear myself to actually put it on the screen. It's too much even for me. But that's what he says. Now, presence, you shouldn't think of presence as a uniform phenomenon that stands in need of differentiation in distinct species. Must be regarded as essentially disjunctive phenomenon. It must be itself understood in terms of more specific kinds. So I tend to think that from this passage, he thinks that you should be primitivist and also pluralist. There might be very different notions of presence. They shouldn't be defined in terms of each other. I mean, they might have actually substantive relation. So yeah, once again, I thought I did, but clearly I didn't. But it's okay. He's still dressed in black for today. So I'm thinking this is just the greatest thing ever. Well, no, we're gonna have another. Okay, good. So that's So then you can play. See, how much time do I have?
5 now.
5 now. Okay, perfect. Now I'm going to just do.
20 minutes of.
Yeah, no, because there's. Yeah. So I'm not going to do. So you can do universals. You can do social science if you think that things actually gets to be present where the members are. I know Keith now has a paper that says this problematic sometimes. So I'm going to do God. Yeah. Okay. Exactly. There's only one. So that's easy, right? The delegator is one. Okay. So the God is said to be everywhere. Okay. One natural way of caching the intuitive picture is just omnipresent, meaning like it's just located in every region. Now, a lot of people are swayed by this objection, which I will call the materiality objection. Being weakly located in space is sufficient for being material, but God is immaterial, therefore it shouldn't be located in space. I'm not swayed because I think there's plenty of immaterial things that are in space. If Keith is right, I think rainbows are immaterial things that are in space. Holes, cracks, fractures, failures. I think that there's a bunch of things immaterial that are in space. So I'm not swayed. But if you are, here's where actually what you can do. So you can just cash out divine omnipresence as omnipresence in the technical sense that I told you, being present everywhere. Because as I told you, right, it's actually compatible with both omnilocation and omniexistence. In fact, you can even go as far as saying it exists everywhere. It's just not located anywhere in space. Okay. Whether you should choose one or the other probably depends on your take on the materiality objection. Once again, I'm not swayed too much, but I also never met God, so who knows? So if you're moved, I think you should go with omniexistence. If you're not moved, you can just stick with omnilocation. Okay, that's good. So now, one important thing before we to the best part of the talk is the following. So you shouldn't conflate this distinction between this with this distinction, which it's in philosophy of religion. So this is I took it from Inman, but it's already in Hudson, and I mean Aquinas actually had basic this. So it says that there's two ways of being in space: fundamental location and derivative location. To be fundamentally located somewhere is for you just to be there in virtue of nothing else, and derivative location is for you to be there just in virtue of having a relation with something else. But you still get to be there, located there. So I thought, my guess is that if you have grounding, so for example, say, these claims of location here will be ungrounded. This will be grounded in some other locative claim. So Paolo gets to be there because, I don't know, God, it has some relationship with God. But the thing is, it's still, if derivative location is location, you still get that you are located there. Therefore, if you are swayed by the materiality objection, this will not help. So you cannot actually get out of the materiality objection with this distinction, but you can with mine. One again. Okay, so now for the last bit.
Right.
Let me drink. I'm not joking. So first of all, I'm not joking, and Damiano can testify. I was a little bit. I've been reading too much existentialist literature. So yes, I know that you like it. So and I actually got very worried about existentialist and ethical implications of the delegation theory, because I thought everyone actually felt. So this is so I was reading the autobiographies of Sartre and de Beauvoir. So the de Beauvoir one, Memories of a Beautiful Daughter, is beautiful. I Sartre, okay, it's not his best work. But here he says something which I think it's important, because I think we all feel that once, well, on Tuesdays usually. But you suddenly realize, right, that you are ashamed of your presence, of your incongruous presence in this older world. I mean, every time, right? Sometimes you think that the world might be better off without you. And that's a thought that we all have, especially on Tuesdays. Then we have a drink, and it's fine, right? But I think that's important, actually. And I thought, well, even if you take yourself out of a place, I'm not going to say the word, if you still have delegates there, you're still going to be present there. Right? So traces of literally, and that's some sort of traces of you. And I actually worried about it a lot, like, from this point perspectives. And so the thought is that if that's the case, let me drink again. This is water, it's not vodka, I promise. So if that's the case, though, I think you should choose your delegates wisely. Choose wisely. Let them at least say,
that you are here, that life exists, and identity. That the powerful play goes on, and you may contribute a verse.
Thank you. Yeah.
And you start on the other please with the. Good, thanks, Claudio. Just on this very last point.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, omnipresence and the omnipotent God. That's one thing, but this is immortality as well, right? You should really think that this has some similarities with, say, Mark Johnson's view about how it is that you can survive your death by having the right kind of delegates around. I mean, he's thinking they're your cultural productions and so on,
I
but
didn't know.
you should have one.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I didn't know. I know that of course, there's a discussion about the location of God to time, right? Whether eternity is just omnipresent in time. And some people think that it's timelessness, it's not even weakly located, or eternity is just temporal. I didn't know that. I know that. Yeah, so yes, well, I'll ask you the reference now, because yes. But for the book, maybe.
Thank you so much. Beautiful talk. Really enjoyed it, and I feel like I'm getting kind of debasing it with my question because I was thinking of something that the kids talked yesterday, and I was thinking of Goldie,
Yeah.
and in more of a debased money sort of talk again. I thought, well, I like what you had to say about systems of places. Okay, and so I was thinking of, instead of Goldie, I was thinking of Bitcoin, and it seems really difficult to figure out where the bloody hell this stuff is, and I thought that systems of places might say something about that, and I think that the idea of delegating it. So I thought this is sort of like me just thinking about this as an idea, and I think this has got. I think what your project seems to have some purchase on that, because I was thinking that Bitcoin might have the same problem as Goldie with relativistic effects, and so I thought I'd just throw it out and see what you had to say about it.
That's good. It's not a business action. So I don't know, Bitcoin. Two things though. So there's one thing is whether you think that location is fairly general, and therefore systems of location can be all sorts of things. Clearly, space and time are one sorts of things, but I tend to be. I don't know whether it's formal in the Husserl sense, in the original Husserl sense, but I tend to think it's general. So, for example, I think there is some sort of location in qualitative space, location in state space when you do state space physics, location in, for example, I tend to think that if you move your rook in C3, you have a system of location. And in fact, your rook is going to be located at C3. C3 is a good square, right? Good. I don't know. I think it's in the center. Oh, he plays. Anyway, so yes. So for example, I think, so Fabrice is an example that I think machines are located at IP addresses. So it's one claim like that, which I think holds. And in fact, it's going to be one of the theses of the book we are writing, that if it's not mutual, it's at least fairly general. It's another thing to actually plug on top of it the delegation theory. You can't do one without the other, of course. And also, so they're logically independent. Right? You might think that the only things that gets to be, for example, in the second argument place of the location relation is just space-time or space-time. You can think that and still do delegation theory there. And you might think that, yeah, location is general, and you might even think for some systems I'll do delegation, for some systems I don't do delegation. So I think you're completely right that can help, but so there are two different aspects of it. And then one, when applied to that case, you have to see which one matters. My guess is that the generality of the location relation will matter immensely there. You will have to find a system of location where they are located. It doesn't have to be space. Once again, I think beauty is located in Damiano. So I think things can be locations. Well, it's beauty.
Yeah, I want you to feel better.
Yes.
So
Can I call my mom?
So even if you think that from some metaphysical point of view, one shouldn't be defining these two notions, existence and location, in other terms, there's still maybe some interest in seeing to what extent it can indeed be done. Okay. I don't want you to feel too good though.
Exactly. So I'm waiting for this.
Even though that may be your project, I don't think you've done what you need to do in order
Okay.
to carry it out. Strictly speaking, to carry it out, what you would need to do is to formalize my own theory or some theory of existence and location, and then provide some kind of interpretative or bi-interpretative result between them. So I don't think the other theory has been formalized. And actually, I think there may be certain difficulties in actually providing this kind of translation. But anyway, I see what you've done is you said, oh, these definitions look right. That's all. You're just relying on some intuition that these definitions look right. We don't know whether they have going to have the right formal properties or anything like that. This will be kind of at least a test of whether you've got something like the right notion. Anyway, so that's what I hope you're feeling a little worse there.
No, that's good. I mean, you don't want to be happy for too long. Who's going to bear that? No, good, perfect. No, look, I completely agree. So the thought is that so that's what I wanted to do at first. I tried, and that's where the principles that you saw actually came from. And then I thought, none of them. So if you think that delegation is so general as to include counterparts, I could find counterexamples to almost all of them. So now I'm worried that you're right. If I do the homework, the SNF should give me money for that, first of all. Yeah. So if I do the homework, I'll maybe end up with just a very, very weak theory, which is going to probably include this. It's just going to include, well, I'd say P1, P2, but this comes just out, it's the theorems, P3 and P4. That's the only thing. So P3 will say that if something is a delegate, it's weakly located at the place, and then the other says that if something is weakly located at the place, it's a delegate of itself. Unfortunately, I couldn't find any other plausible, and from these, no formal property of delegate, neither of presence action follows, unfortunately. So you might be right that once I do the job, and it turns out that.
Oh, I was thinking you have a strong theory. So
Okay.
These are minimal axioms you might have.
Yeah.
You know, add further axioms and say, look, if I have these, make
Oh,
these
good.
supposed assumptions, then I can exactly reproduce this other theory.
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah. But we need to know we don't even know right now what that other theory is, I was thinking. Yes, actually, let me just mention one difficulty that I was having in understanding how the two relate. So I have a separatist ideology. So I have existence as, at least to get to material things. It's different for events, but I have existence. I think I have existence at a time, location in space, and actually I tend to think in terms of time, in terms of instance, and space in terms of points. That may not be strictly necessary. Whereas, as far as I can see, with your theory, do you just have one set of locations?
No, that you don't. No. You can have all. So you got
in your theory you presented it. Do you have just one?
So I presented like this. So you're right. I presented it like this, but you can have all sorts of delegation structures. Delegation structure will come with different actually time, space.
Oh, good.
Yes, that I can do. But you're right. So here's a technical question. So the best one I know, it's the location theory of presence. Like it's just being here because now we have actually theories of location which are axiomatized. I can show, so under what conditions I can reproduce the weak theory of location and the weak theory of presence. You're right. That's a good question to ask. I honestly don't know.
I just pursue this a little bit more.
Absolutely.
So I thought one of the great advantages of this theory is it explains how things fuse. They fuse conjunctively with respect to time, for example. So whether you could do that on the other side, that is with your definitions, you did have fusion at one point because you talked about the fusions of these locations. Okay, but whether you could do something on the other side in terms of these defined notions would be an interesting question.
You're right.
Yeah.
So because when you talk, I remember that exactly. So you do it for meteorological reasons.
Yes.
Because you have this compounding and aggregating, right? There are two different ways of bringing material objects together, and it matters the way they are in the space they are in order for them to come together. This is completely absent here as of now. So the only thing I have is meteorological structure on the set S. Yes. So I think you're right. So that's an interesting question, whether, as far as I can see now, I have to say something more because you will not get it just out of this, the things that you have, unfortunately. But I think about it. Yeah, of course. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so I was thinking about so I need a good handle on delegation, right? Or to sort of see
Yeah.
which principles are plausible.
Yeah.
Anybody you can maybe very briefly say something about some other sort of possible cases? Like I was thinking a grounded object delegates its grounding objects. A set delegates its members. A constitutive object grounds its delegates its matter. And then something like a problematic case would be perhaps like someone being represented. So someone
Yes.
representing me.
Yes.
That's what the word delegation comes
Yes, exactly.
So, but I don't want to be located where the person representing me is located. So can you say a little bit about sort of perhaps why some of these things are maybe not properly thought of as delegation, or they might be, but then it depends on it's sort of,
No, I mean,
sort of going back and forth to the principles on these cases.
Good. So I honestly didn't think about those cases. So because the cases where the theory shines, let's say, when it does really work, are cases in which you don't want the delegators to be located. Otherwise, you can just stick to location. By the way, that's not true. So, for example, Cody Gilmer and Matt Leonard has this paper about composite things, okay, get to fill regions by having parts there. They don't get to do it just by themselves. So they have to get proper parts that have delegates there, because otherwise you have these cases by Shiva language in which you have. So here's one nail, here's another nail of the Tyrannosaurus Rex, and here's the Tyrannosaurus Rex, which is what I mean. It fills this region without having any parts there, right? So and this is a model. Turns out this is a model of classical meteorology, unfortunately. So you can also, you might want to have delegates in this case, but the cases, the shines, it's literally that. So my case is where their transcendentist theories, God, and at a certain point, this case, which is called the Red Cross case, in which, so there was this problem in social ontology in which Albania apparently in the 80s, I don't know now, didn't have the Red Cross. But then there was something happened. And so a delegation of the Red Cross, the official Red Cross, went there and they had, a stand and so on and so forth. And some people said, somehow the Red Cross is there, but you don't want to say that it's located there. So that's why. So the other ones, but some sounds more plausible. And so the representation thing, it's the immediate one. I think you're completely right. Exactly because, right, you get to have causal powers also in a place where you're not present. If I delegate him, for example, to do very nasty things, like buy every parking spot in Paris. I know it's let me get there. Okay, so I delegate him, is my lawyer, right? He buys all of them. Now all of a sudden you cannot park legally anymore. Right? I'm not there, I'm here, but I'm exerting causal influence actually on Paris through my delegate. Okay. So the delegation thing is exactly that, right? So when you have your lawyer going for you, so I think that's, so what the other is the grounding objects, the grounding facts and the grounding
Sets
and membership. But if you have this view, I don't see, I mean, yeah, if you want to say, for example, that the set is present where its members are, then why not? Right? The method and the statue of the play, I think, yes, especially if you have this structured view of objects. Like the grounding things, the grounding claims. So here's I think the litmus test. Do these things perform some duty for the delegator? Here they do, right? Even in this case that you might think there's no delegation, it's just location. No, they do some work. Why? Because they don't allow the object, right, to fill a region on its own. So maybe the litmus test is that. Is the delegate doing some duty for you? By the way, this doing duty for is from Chisholm, like the methodological essentialism paper, beautiful paper, right, in the 70s. So the duty doers, right, they have to do something for it. So that's my handle, but unfortunately, that's okay, good. So maybe I'll put it in paper now.
One is, what is the relationship of your theory of delegates to Fabrice's theory of toxins? Is it some linked trait of yours or not? And second point is on slide 41. Slide 41.
You want one of those guys?
Yes, I mean, when you have 60 slides, yes.
6 is a good number.
41.
Yes.
Thanks. So, shouldn't universals and tropes be reversed then?
So
I'm just confused about
now,
concentration.
so the thought, unfortunately, universals, and so if you stick to the definition I gave, so let me start from the second one, because that's where I realized I just made a mistake at 5 a.m. I mean, I didn't make the mistake at 5 a.m. I realized I made a mistake at 5 a.m. If you run the definitions I have, you're not gonna get those. It's just wrong. Why? Because as you have it there, instead in the first draft, it's just a matter of being distinct from your delegates. And now both the universals and tropes are going to be distinct from your delegates because the delegate objects. So from that thing, unfortunately, I thought I could recover this, which was the original by Peter almost, but it's not true. So I just made a mistake. Good that you spotted it. Now, there is a way of actually, but I didn't want to upset only too much and put more definitions. You can do that. You can have now two axes. You can have single delegator, many delegates, single delegators, one delegate, and then identity. And then you can actually show that this is going to be concentration in the sense that it's just going to be one delegate. Just going to be the same delegate, blackness, right? The delegate, now we're all dressed in black here, almost. A lot of people, you know, the black have one delegator, whereas the trope will have many delegators. So that's why it's going to be dispersed in that sense. But you're completely right that if you run the definitions, you don't even get this. So maybe that's the right thing to say, because and about the proxy theory, unfortunately, no. I thought I could. That's why I didn't define bold my orgy of definitions. There was no definition of multilocation. Because unfortunately, it turns out, I read carefully Fabrice's formal paper. Strictly speaking, what you need is a theory of location for the delegates here. If you have Parsons' theory for the delegates, Parsons' theory which have functionality that says that delegates cannot be multilocated, then you get the proxy theory, which is a proxy theory is a special case. But without that, no. If you want to say that multilocation is, it's just not true. You don't get the crucial bit about the proxy theory of Fabrice is that you get to say X is multilocated if and only if it has two delegates. Doesn't have two delegates that we can fit in all of the same regions. You don't get that without the theory of location for delegates, unfortunately.
Thanks. Can you say a little bit more about metaphysical explanation and fundamentality and things like that? Because my sense is that you might use a theory like this to map out formal similarities between all of these cases, but the way in which the explanation flows is going to be very different in the different cases. So in the case of sets being present where their members are, it really does seem that the presence of the set is the thing that is being explained by the locations of its members. But in the case of my existence at a time being connected to the location of the events that I'm involved in, and it doesn't seem right to me that I'm explaining how I am at that time. Maybe that's the wrong intuition. But
look at them. They're laughing.
Right. So I have very different intuitions about what explains what, even though the formal structures look the same.
You're right. So I didn't think so. The only thing I thought about explanation is the following one, which is not what you're saying. So I'll come back to it. I just toyed with this. So, which is a different question. I toyed with this. I toyed with this. So I toyed with the fact that the claims about this relation will explain, talks about presence. So I thought that this induced relation, what explains why a universal is present at a region is that there is an object that instantiates it. So I thought, once you have these, let's say this conditional, you might think that claims of presence are explained by claims about the induced relations. And my only argument for this is that I think that Damiano says something like this at a certain point in the paper. But I think you might be right that this does not track whether my presence is explained through delegators or vice versa. I think you have to add it on top. As a matter of fact, the only thing that I can say is this, but this is a different thing, right? This is a different thing. It will not explain. It will explain just claims of presence of the delegate, not the relationship between presence of the delegates and the delegate, which is the one you're after. And the theory will not say anything to it. And I think that that's maybe how it is supposed to be, because I tend to think, in fact, I tend to think, going back to what Kit said, and so I tend to think that this is the best case to be made, just to go fully primitivist. It might be the case that in the end of the day, these cases are so dissimilar, okay, that it might be better to be primitivist. Okay. And my theory, at least, see, can cash out these differences, right? Because it doesn't tell you that. So, of course, I think that you have to judge case by case. But it might very well be, you know, a false friend, right? Because it doesn't say, because I think you're right. Cases will differ in claims of hours of explanation. So it's good that the theory doesn't force it. But if it just turns out that these cases are so different because of things about explanation, because of things about what the induced relation is, how it behaves, and so on and so forth, it might be an argument for just going pluralist. Just forget, I mean, not doing anything, just go pluralist. So I worry about that. But that's the only thing I can say now.
This is the last speech first.
Thank you. This was a wonderful call.
Thank you.
I'm not sure if my question can make sense. So, question was, so if I understood it correctly, for a given entity to be present, a delegate, please be present, or exists there, right?
So for something to have a delegate, the theory doesn't tell you, unfortunately. The theory doesn't tell you what you need for something to have a delegate. It's primitive about delegation because of that. And some people, for example, Thomas Satti, which is not here, told me, well, if you don't tell me that, then, you know. But so what the theory tells you is that for you to be somewhere, you have to have a delegate. That's what the theory tells. So that's what the theory tells you. And if you want to be existing at the place in the technical sense of Kit and Damiano, and that being present there in the Paris example, like we're not being located, that's how the theory tells you. You have to have a delegate, and you have to be sure that the induced relation is not location inducing. You have to have the right sort of relation between the delegates and the delegate, the delegators and the delegates, in order to achieve that. Because if it's identity, for example, you don't get to be present without being there. That's what the theory tells you. But you spotted something, like you're right that the theory unfortunately doesn't tell you what is for something to be a delegate of. So here's a case in which I think it's worrying about, and I didn't know. So suppose that, so here's the same case. Suppose now that, I mean, me and Ant actually now form a band, a rock and roll band. Okay, seems like we should do. Okay, suppose now we want to audition for opening, I don't know, whatever band. Who do we want to open for? Yeah, whatever.
People are going to be opening for us.
Okay, so okay, people are going to. But let's say we want to open for, I don't know, Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. He's for the Australian, and I love them. Okay, so suppose Nick Cave is interested in philosophy, right? He comes here. In this case, it's not a delegate. You might say it's not a delegate for Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds because it's just coming as Nick Cave, just to this nice philosophy. So if you have qua objects, it's not coming qua singer of the Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. But now suppose that he knows that we are here and we are auditioning for that and we are playing later tonight. Then he comes here probably because he wants to listen to us. In that case, my intuition tells me, in that case, he is a delegate for Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. Because he's going to scout us, okay, for playing for him. Now, unfortunately, the theory is silent to this. It's just completely silent. It doesn't tell you, my guess is that you have to do the metaphysics of that particular situation, in that situation. That's why it won't only like that. It's going to be silent, and then you have to actually go and look case by case. Unfortunately, in some cases, even the same entities, right? Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. My guess is that you're not going to get delegates, unfortunately.
Okay, so